hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails and Rocktails with me, your most notorious groupie, Alice Mouse, author of this little guy right here. These other little books where you can get all that, my merchandise, all down in that link tree in that description. So go check it out, you guys. And I will have my merchandise linked here as well, so you can just sort of click on it. Oh, sorry, I had a call. But okay, and as always, I cannot start unless I'm telling everybody thank you so much. I am just so grateful for the friendships, for the subscribers, whether you're part of the conversation, whether you're just enjoying and hanging out anonymously. Thank you, everybody, for just really making this channel grow, for really enjoying it, for the conversations, for everybody just being so fucking badass and bonding over music and gossip. And because we do gossip about rock stars here, and we've had gossip conversations about, with other girls that have been with the same musicians and stuff. And I love that. I love that we can share our stories, it's really awesome. So, and thank you just to everybody in the family. You guys fucking rock. What can I say? Speaking of rock, we've got another documentary. Nothing But a Good Time. It's on Paramount if you guys have not seen it. I don't know. Maybe you will watch it, maybe you won't after this, but we're going to talk about that today. And today we're going to finish up the Copper Can, this little blackberry mule. It's basically a Moscow mule, but with a little bit of blackberry in it. And I've already started drinking it, so we're just going to keep on because this is actually really good. I love a good Moscow mule, that ginger beer, but with the blackberry added, it really does work with the ginger. It's so good. So yeah, everybody grab your blackberry, kick up your feet, and let's have a little cocktails and rocktails. Cheers, speakers. Okay, so let's get talking about this new documentary, Nothing But a Good Time. And it's based on a book that was written a while ago about kind of the 80s and metal and stuff. So let's get into it and see what we have to say about this. See what I have to say about that. Oh, sorry. Got my notes as usual. Okay, so kind of to start off with, the second it started playing, you see Bret Michaels, you see Rudy Sarzo, you see all these same faces that has been in every fucking 80s Sunset Strip, this and that documentary. So it wasn't a good start for me, because I'm like, oh God, here we go. It's going to be the same stories, the same faces, the same bullshit. They're going to have one side of the story, Doc McGee. There was a couple guys in there that were pretty new to me. What's his name? What's the Tom Zertot and Alan, who was early manager of Guns N' Roses, managed a lot of bands, Great White, stuff like that. These two guys in this was really, their stories were like, made the documentary for me. The rest of it, like I said, we'll get into the rest of it, but these two guys' stories, and I love the way that Alan really tells his stories, you guys, because I know we'll all watch it, but I love the way he's like, I was in my bunk and then I wasn't, and just the way he just total typical smooth delivery from an Englishman in telling a story, to where this is a horrific story, but that tone and that smooth delivery, it just makes it just really funny the way he tells it. So I really enjoyed his point of view and Tom's point of view, because I haven't really heard a lot of Tom's stories. And that the fact that he was so young when he started, being A&R, finding bands for Geffen. And I love that, because that's really kind of how it was back in the day. I think that really, for me, defines what the 80s was. You could be really young and be successful in the music business, or have good ideas, or have, a chance at making it without a degree and everything. But like I said, a lot of the same faces, Penelope Spheris was back again. Of course, I did not like her shit in it, but again, we'll get into that. We'll get more into this kind of aspect of it as we go along. And, they were talking about how glam metal kind of came about, that Motley Crue really set, and they might have said it for the hair metal of the 80s, because they're like, well, Motley Crue set the style, set the look, Wasp, this and this and that. Well, I kind of beg to differ because Judas Priest was already dressing in the leather, in the chains, and the belts. Rob Halford set that precedence. And the glam side for me came from like New York Dolls. Because you said New York Dolls and Wasp and Motley basically if Judas Priest and New York Dolls had babies, it would have been the hair metal bands all the way. So for them to kind of, and again, it's like LA Sunset Strip, we have to own everything type of deal. Which, yeah, Motley Crue did kind of set off a little bit of a big part of the hair metal bands, I'm not going to lie. But they didn't start that style. So, for me, I was kind of like, wait a minute, why aren't you giving props to Priest or New York Dolls or Motorhead? Because Motorhead was having that look. And you guys, I have to say this about one scene in the movie. There's a part, and I can't remember if it's the second or the third or the first episode. I think it might be the first. And Rudy was talking about leaving Ozzy after Randy sadly and passed away and going back to Quiet Riot. And Quiet Riot was getting ready to go on stage at the US Festival. And here's the lead singer, Kevin DeBrow. And if you look at the way his belt is hanging, you'll see what I mean. It's just being held up because the guy was skinny and had no hips. The only thing that's holding it up is his wang. Yep. It's just all hanging on that little thing there. Yep. No imagination to those spandex. Which us ladies did not mind that in the 80s. So, okay, so let's see. Ricky Rackman. So the English manager, like I said, Alan, he was fucking funny. One of the things he said, no one died on my watch. I'm like, oh, wish I could say that. But I've only lost one. Still a good record. Okay. Ricky Rockman. I always kind of enjoy Ricky Rockman because Ricky Rockman's kind of like a bull kind of slowly wandering about a china shop. Like he's going to say what he's going to say, but he's going to say it pretty even mannered. But he's always very unrepentant. Like he's like, fuck yeah, I loved owning the cat house. I got every night I got me some, and that's the whole reason. So we didn't have to pay for drinks and we didn't have to clean up afterwards and we could get chicks all we wanted, which this kind of bothers me about it. And this is where we're going to bring in, okay, so Dee Dee Kill, she was booking, I don't know if she booked the cat house or a couple other places, but she was a booking agent on the scene who was married to Ron Keel. You guys don't know who he is. He was the lead singer of a band, Keel, that never made it, that really kind of sucked, but just sort of got slurped up into the, 80s hair metal scene, into that last gasp when Warrant and everybody else got signed up. So, but she held her own, and there was a picture of her from the 80s in there where she had brown hair. Dude, she was a hottie. She needs to go back to brown hair. Because that brown hair, that kind of auburny brown hair that she had in this picture, just, woo! Set her on fire, so I can see. Now, between her and Penelope Spheris, this is the kind of point I'm trying to make. So, Dee Dee was talking about, how all these girls, because once again, there are no 80s groupies in this documentary. There are no real perceptions from, side of the story told by an 80s groupie, told by anyone. So both Penelope and Dee Dee were talking about how, there were so many women in LA and they just, they just surrounded these guys and would do anything for him and do everything for him. And they would, give him little oral surprises under the tables or in the bathrooms at the Rainbow or whatever, because that did go on a lot at the Rainbow back then. So they were talking about how it was done, and they were very degrading towards the women, about how those women they were sluts, they were whores, they were just stupid women who were supporting these rock stars, they were being used, this and this and that. And then Dee Dee Kill talks about that, and she's like, these women would do anything for them. They would just give them all the money, all the food, this and this and that. And in the same breath, Dee Dee Kill goes to say, well, talk about being in a candy store and you've got to taste the sweets, right? Because she had herself some fun, and good on her for having herself some fun. She was a hottie patati. She was a woman, claiming her own prowess, which good for her. But don't go and kind of, and maybe it was the way it was edited, but it wasn't edited because it was kind of one stream of consciousness, but don't go and act like you, who supported your ex-husband Ron Kill, who never made it in any way, shape, or form, because you were one of those girls who would do anything for those musicians, right? And turn around and say, but I was a kid in a candy store. How could you not taste the sweets? That's what we need more of, Dee Dee. And stop right there. Don't go around saying the other girls were less because you just were a booking agent, not a groupie. You were a groupie. You just had a good job as a booking agent to where you had easier access to the rock stars. Right? But you yourself supported a musician. You yourself were married to a starving musician. And they did maybe a tour or two around the U.S. for maybe a couple years. They had one album that I don't even remember. You know what I mean? So Dee Dee was the breadwinner in that. So don't be trashing on other girls for doing that. Don't be trashing on that. You were a groupie. You just had a great job. And nothing wrong with being a groupie at all, by any means, because us 80s groupies, we owned our shit. And that's what pisses me off, because then Penelope Spheres was kind of having the same attitude about, oh my God, all these desperate women, they just wanted the attention. Oh, but I would go to the cat house on a Saturday night just to get laid. Because we could do that. But Penelope, you were taking your own sexuality, your own desires, your own prowess into your hands and were empowered for that. But everybody else around you was just nothing but street walking whores, right? Right? So again, we have that attitude, and it does come up like Doc McGee. Doc McGee kind of pisses me off because he's like, we took Bunny, there were some strippers that were like, hey, just come on the bus, and we ended up in another city, so we would take Bambi and Christmas and Portia, and take him to the Walk of Shame, to the Greyhound bus. Fuck you, dude. Fuck you. That might have been one fucking story out of the myriad of hundreds of thousands of things that happened on that road. Because Doc McGee, you never treated me like that. And no band treated me like that. I got flown home. There was a round trip ticket. It was not like we were protected. We were made sure we were safe and got home in one piece. And then he was bragging about charging the guys. Oh, the guys pay for it anyway. And how they were arguing, I didn't fuck her. I shouldn't have to pay for her ticket home. Oh my God. Like, again, here we have this portrayal of the groupies and the rock chicks, the road wives, the star fuckers, the ramp rats, whatever. Because there is, and they're not all the same thing. I was a groupie road wife type. But the women at home, because you sit in the office booking those bands, it's okay for you to do it. Because you sit in a director chair and made some documentaries, it's okay for you to do it, because that's what makes you empowered, is getting on that side on the back side of the stage, or the back side of the camera, being that. No, that's not what empowers you. What empowers you is the fact that you have self-respect and you're okay with going out and living your life. That you don't give a fuck about how people judge you. And I don't know if they notice that. Penelope definitely does that, because that's been her whole thing. Like I said, even in Wayne's World, she objectifies all the women. So that's kind of her method of operation. Dee Dee, I think, didn't mean to do it. Honestly, I think because, like I said, she herself supported a starving musician and her husband, and I have no doubt she made more money than him. She herself was in LA reaping the rewards of having those rock stars right there at your beck and call. And that's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't matter. And if you were just a waitress, if you worked, as a makeup artist, if you were a stripper, it's the same thing. You shouldn't be judged because you're supporting someone. That's hypocritical. So I didn't like that hypocrisy in it. And like I said, I think Penelope was more intended. I don't think Dee Dee Kill actually intended it. And maybe it was just edited in a weird way. And maybe she did talk about herself supporting her ex-husband Ron Kill. So, and it was just edited out. So, but she did it. So don't be coming down on anybody and saying, those girls, because that's when it becomes a whole different conversation. Those girls, man. You were one of those girls because you loved your husband. You loved that man. And these girls adored them and wanted the best, adored their music, adored their band, loved the camaraderie, loved the family. And these guys walked all over them. And they're still kind of doing it in this documentary. So, all right. Yeah, they say GNR kind of ended hair metal, but I beg to differ because Metallica was happening, Megadeth, all those bands, Anthrax, Testament. It was, like I said, that natural progression. But whenever you have a documentary about the 80s, about hair metal, the people making it, the people editing it, always want to have LA own everything to do with hair metal. Everything to do with, it's got to be. And someone even commented, because I had commented on, because you can watch the first episode for free here on YouTube. I did find it here if you don't have Paramount. But so they were commenting on, what was I trying to say? Hold on. Yeah, I couldn't remember where I was going with that. But anyway, for me, it was not Guns N' Roses that changed the direction of where metal was going. It was Megadeth, who came out before Guns N' Roses. It was Metallica, who was out there before Guns N' Roses. It was those bands. It was Motorhead becoming big again. It was those bands that kind of ended heavy metal because it was a natural progression into the intelligence of a rock song and what it was about. And they even do talk about that in the transition of, hair metal to thrash and then they're trying to, they're like, Nirvana, that one song, Teen Spirit, it just ended hair metal. No, it didn't. Like I said, it was thrash. It was the changing of fun music for a good summertime feeling, having a good time, going to a party. A thrash kind of changed that from being the more intelligent rock. Yes, the world did change with one song by Nirvana because grunge, and it needs to. I mean, there's a progression of music. If your music is not progressing, then you're just getting stale. You're not being creative. Your imagination, your passion it's gone. So, yeah, I think that's kind of the same thing. Same old. Like I said, so far we're at same old with this because, like I said, it's very much centered on the Sunset Strip. They even talk about, the Rainbow, the Risky, the Roxy, all right in this one place and blah, 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 right? We know that. Well, what about the Stone Pony? What about the Speedway Cafe? What about the Off-Ramp and the Rock Candy? What about, what was the club that Pantera started down in Dallas and all that? What about all that? Because when are we going to do a documentary? And someone had said, I know where I was going with the comment thing. But someone had said in one of the comments, dude, called me dude. I'm like, shut up, lady. Even though it was a guy. Because I'm sick and tired of people. Have patience, dude. They're like, the book, they go more into the New York and New Jersey. Which is cool in the book if they go into New York. Because they talk about all these bands and, try and claim them to the LA Strip. But I mean, you had Trickster, you had Def Leppard, you had Dangerous Toys, you had White Lion, you had, let me see who else is in my notes. I've got all my notes. Who else did you have? No talk about Bon Jovi whatsoever. Judas Priest, Hanoi Rocks, Skid Row, Ozzy, Extreme, Trickster, not from LA. So metal was not just about from LA. So I think it's time we kind of get out of New York, get out of LA, and kind of go through the United States in the middle because there was a lot of killer metal scenes going on with local bands, with national bands, with European bands, with everybody. Like I said, Salt Lake was the groupie capital of the world. All the smaller towns were the party places, Dallas, Houston, Austin, where was that Rita Ray Rocks from that she wrote her book? Omaha. So I think it's time to kind of focus more on the center of the United States and what was really going on in metal because it wasn't just based on the and the thing about it is this is a very nostalgic, series. And I like the way it kind of brings around the nostalgia. It's very well put together that way. It's not your typical, hyped up kind of stuff. It's just a really well put together documentary. But is it your nostalgia? When you're watching it, did you live on the Sunset Strip? Were you part of the Sunset Strip life? Even if you visiting it once or twice, that doesn't count because you had your own metal scene that you were part of in your town. And I think we really, really, really need to not be conditioned to make the Sunset Strip nostalgic for us because it wasn't nostalgic for me. I didn't live there. Wasn't for the people who live there. Yeah, it's nostalgic and rightfully so. So, it's just like I said, it's that same old kind of LA was the center of the metal world. No, it wasn't. It just happened to be where the record companies were. There were record companies in New York. There were record companies in Florida. There were record companies here in Salt Lake fucking City. But LA just happened to be the place to go at that time. If you were from, like, Fargo or, fucking, I don't know, where's Dangerous Toys from? Killeen, Texas, or whatever. It just happened to be the place you went because that's where the corporate offices were. That's where you happen to get your most chance at being signed because most of the AR guys are not going to be out on the road. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they hear of a band in Sandusky, Ohio, or a singer from fucking Indiana, and they go out and see them. But not often. So that's the only reason LA really had the majority of bands going out there because they wanted to be close to the offices of where they could actually do their business. So, and Corey Taylor from Slipknot, you with your dewy mohawk, that little fucking trendy, you and Ricky Rockman both have the same hair throughout this whole thing. I can tell you love you some metal shit because you just defend Poison like you were one of their groupies. And I was a groupie and I would never defend him like that because we all know Bret Michaels tap, 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 out. I tapped him out. So, but he's very defensive and it kind of cracks me up. And he's like, if you're going to say Poison didn't have a huge part in that first video. Yeah, they did because we were all young and we were all, that was the vibe at the time. We wanted laughter. We wanted sex, drugs, rock and roll. Because that's another thing that this documentary, it brags about the sex, drugs, and rock and roll. But it brags from the guy's point of view. Now, there was something I was going to say about the groupies, being degraded as always. Roxy Petrucci tells a great story of how somebody came up to her, a really well-known, she wouldn't say who it was, a really well-known rock star. He's like, you're a good drummer for a girl. And she was sitting with Lemmy and she just kind of was like, thanks, and blew him off, right? So Lemmy turns to her, he goes, if anybody ever says that again, just tell him to suck your dick. And she's like, fuck yeah. And that, my friend, is what we should say to anybody who tries to put, because like I said, the rock stars, and the story of her sister, when that guy flopped out his mini King Kong onto the stage, and how the sister stepped on it like it was a bad snake. That's a good story. That made me laugh. Because that shows the prowess of the 80s. And then they're all trying to make Lita Ford like the baddest bitch in rock and roll. Oh, sweet, me and Kristen made out with her fiance, Chris Holmes, at the time. While she was on stage and we were on the side of it. She's not the baddest bitch in rock and roll. Me and Kristen were. Because we were making out with her fiance. Anyway, but, and I do think that the women there's a lot more women from the 80s, and I'm glad that they included Vixen. I'm glad that they didn't do any interviews with Lita Ford or anything. It was just Vixen, I believe, and Penelope Spheris and Dee Dee. These were the only women in this whole documentary. There's a hell of a lot more women to be talking to, and we need to do that. So, Paramount producers, if you happen to stumble on this, come on now. My book could only grow because it's not just my story anymore. It becomes Danny's story, Marie's story, Kristen's story. It expands. I'm just the base of the operation, So, okay, let's see. What else do I have in my notes? Oh, and Steve-O. Okay, Steve-O from Jackass is in this, and it just cracked me up because what have I always said that me and Danny used to do? We would do the rounds by each hotel, or we would call the hotels and be like, is Richie Barron there. Richie, he's passed away now. Richie Barron was one of the roadies that basically helped Kristen and I and Danny and everybody. We solidified our reputation through him because he was on different tours. So we would be taught, we would call the hotels, and I've talked about this a million times. And until we found, Rex King or Richie Barron or Ian Jeffries or whatever. And Steve-O did that exact same thing to meet, who was it? Motley Crue. He called every hotel in LA until he found Doc McGee's brother. And because his brother Scott McGee thought that was so fun, so awesome that he did that, he gave backstage passes. What the fuck? So he just solidified exactly what I told you works from the 80s. And that we were doing so well done, Steve-O. I'm glad we weren't the only ones doing it, I know we weren't the only ones doing it. I'm sure there were lots of 80s ladies. Let me know if you did it down in those comments. And, there's somebody I really wasn't my cup of tea. I never liked him. Didn't care. His band was okay to me, But there was one person that really, really, really just blew my mind, especially because how we just lost him with Lewy body dementia. Whoops. Is Jack Russell from Great White. He really held his own. Like I said, I was kind of surprised to sit there and watch him telling these stories with such precision and good memory, because that was just filmed a couple years ago. And Lewy body dementia, your last couple years of life, you pretty much don't function. Like, I can see what he's going through in his eyes, in his movements, in his laughter, in kind of the way he's shrinking into himself, because I've seen that with my own family, with my mother, with my grandfather, with my great-grandmother, But I have to commend Jack Russell for doing an amazing job at telling those stories and laughing at him and really remembering. I was, like I said, being the daughter of an Alzheimer's. My mom had Alzheimer's. My grandfather had Lewy body dementia. My great-grandmother had it before anybody knew what the fuck it was. So, wow, that kind of really blew me away. So good on you, Jack Russell. And we finally know the story, because they tell the story of why he was arrested, because in the 80s, the big story, the rumors that were flying around, out on the road and stuff, is that somebody else was doing time because Jack unalived somebody. And a friend took the fall for him and was doing that time. But this story is dispelled 100% in this documentary. So that was one thing I did really, really enjoy. Let's go back here. And, the last one is, and this is, we're going to kind of come to an end, is that the last part of the episode, the third part, kind of touches on a lot of the drug use, a lot of the band fights and stuff. Like we said, we've already done that episode here. We already talked about that here with the Do Bands Have to Respect, the Respect episode. The drug problems, and I really like how they kind of brought Robin Crosby into things. And poor Warren DeMartini, he was so sweet throughout this whole documentary. He's holding his guitar, and you can tell when he gets a little nervous or like doesn't want to talk about something, he'll just strum his guitar for a second, and then he'll go back to talking. And I really like the way they kind of touched on Robin Crosby, because he is forgotten a lot throughout the metal history of the metal world, and he's pigeonholed along with a lot of the people who did pass away from drug abuse and stuff like that, who had problems. So he's kind of lumped into that, and I like that they kind of gave him his own soapbox to stand on, so to speak, and like I said, and I don't like Stevie Rochelle, because Henrik Ostergaard from Dirty Looks was trying to beat the shit out of him one time over me. All because I got on the Tufts bus to go smoke a joint in Salt Lake City at the Bear Fest. Yeah, Stevie Rochelle, that was me. Yeah. Don't you love it? So, and he actually was really well handled throughout it as well. And I like how he was like, people make fun of Tuff. He's like, but I don't fucking regret it, because I went out and lived my life. I did it. I fucking did it. And he did. I know, I fucked his bass player behind the club once. Or his drummer. And he was sitting in the van in his little rider. Come on, we're leaving, Jimmy. And I'm like, he's coming. Hold on. So am I. Good Lord, Stevie Rochelle. Just because you couldn't get laid that night. Anywho, so basically, I think you guys should watch it, kind of come to your own conclusion. But I just think there was a lot of repetitive bullshit in it. It's like, when is Hollywood going to stop being so uncreative? When did you lose your creativity? When did you lose your passion to go out on a limb? When did you lose? Because I mean, I think that's one thing we should really learn from Tom Zutat. He went out on a limb. Hold on. You guys can hear Beluga. He doesn't like it when I film because I shut the door, and he does not like a shut door. But I mean, I just think it was really kind of the same old story, 90% of it. Like I said, the most interesting stories came really from Alan, Tom, and Jack White made me laugh about a couple of his stories. So I just think that's the only thing that made it different. 90% of it, same old bullshit. Groupies are degraded. The women in offices are exalted. The men still like, Doc McGee, fuck you. You know, Christmas Bambi. Who are you, Doc McGee, with your fucking Botox, fake teeth, hairpiece? Still looking the same because evil festers. But yeah, I mean, it's just that it kind of pisses me off because, like I said, just sort of the same old story. Let's hear some new stories. Paramount, check out my book. It's new stories. And my book is only half the stories. Half of mine. I'm not even talking about Danny's stories. Not even talking about the rest of my stories. Not talking about Kristen's stories. So here's something new and exciting, you guys. Oh my God! Paramount producer Michael Blakey. Back in that office yet? I'm still waiting on that phone call. Or that email. Gotcha. So yeah, again, I think it's just Hollywood leaning on the same old attitude of same old stories. It's something you can listen to while you're cleaning a house. And even if you miss about a half an hour of it, you're not missing anything because it's still, you already know what was happening in that half an hour because we've heard it before. So I think we've pretty much heard it before. Honestly, I don't know why they keep rehashing the same story. It's like all the Elvis and Priscilla movies again. Really? So yeah, we need to find some producers in Hollywood that are more creative, that are more like Tom Zutat. Not afraid. But all right, you guys, if you've seen the series, tell me what you think down in the description. Tell me what your metal scene was like if you were not part of LA, if you were not part of New York or something, like if you were just in freaking Kansas City or, like I said, Omaha. You know, Rita Ray Rocks has told her story. Has told her story. You know, if you were in Seattle, because I was in Seattle, but I was in Seattle during the grunge years. Or Denver, Colorado, because I went to Denver a lot in the 80s with bands, and it was a fucking blast in Denver. I met other groupies there. I know you were out there, ladies. So if you guys you were somewhere in the middle of America, between LA and New York, Canada even, tell us your stories. I know there was some killer groupies down in Brazil, down in, over in Europe. Let's hear your stories down in that description. So, and thank you to everybody who's getting to the end of the episode with me. I know I babble a lot. I don't know. I feel like I sometimes have nothing to say, but for everybody who appreciates what I say, thank you. You have no idea how much it means to me that you guys listen and enjoy it and get it and, respond and, it just, you're coming on this journey with me. So thank you so much for that. It truly means the world. And it means the world? Subscribers. So let's get me up because, we're not going to get this book signed without each other. You guys are really helping me out with that. So thank you. So those of you who are just lurking around, those of you who are here, just hit that subscribe button, and everybody who's here, hit the share. Let's get this to 10,000. And thank you so much for getting it to just over 2,000. I'm so excited. I can't even tell you guys how much that alone means to me. Truly, thank you so much, everybody. And like I said, go down, hit the subscribe, hit the share, hit my bells, and we'll see you next time on Cocktails and Rocktails. Cheers, big ears.